Welcome back, Friday Night friends, to today's episode of Scary Movie Fright Night. This is going to be a handsy episode. It's going to be super hands-on. So as we get started, just reach out your hand, place it in mine,
and talk to me.
I let you in.
This is Scary Movie Fright Night,
a podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered. Okay. Now you have that recorded.
So this week, we watched another A24 movie. And Sam dressed up for the occasion.
Can I show you
tell everyone
what I'm wearing? Okay,
yeah.
If you're watching, you can see this. Otherwise, I'll have to describe it to you. It's my A24 sweatshirt.
I'm actually a little bit jealous. Why didn't I get... First of all, I was going to buy you a Freddy Krueger sweatshirt for Christmas.
This was a Christmas gift.
Yeah, well, a Freddy Krueger sweater would be better. But, again, for those of you that can't see, it's A24 spelled out with letters like A, space TWENTY. Tac 4. But for those that know the logo, it's the letter A with the numbers 24. So this is embarrassing, but who do I go to impress? The first time I saw Sam wear it, I was like, what is a 24? And yeah, it's fine.
It didn't click.
I'm not very smart.
Your wife had to point out.
It didn't click.
It's A24, like A24.
It's
like the studio.
A24.
But their
like
online
only
store,
one of our favorite studios.
Their online store has really cool merch. Like it's not just like t-shirts and hats, but they also have like scripts, like the what's the term for like a script? It's a
script.
Manuscript? The script?
Manuscript. The script.
Whatever the right term is.
Transcript. The script.
They have the scripts from many of their movies, but like published in a really nice book form with like also like
so like the full like
yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
yeah.
Character, what they said, like literally like a script.
Yes. And along with some like
cool.
photography from like the making of the film. So those look really nice. And they other little things like there's an incense burner, but it's like the ritual building from Midsommar.
Yeah.
That gets burnt down.
Yeah. What color is that building? In my mind, it's
yellow.
Orange. Is it red?
I think
Orange?
It's yellow.
Yellow? Maybe it's yellow. I just know I can see it in my mind. I just don't remember what color it is.
Yeah.
I think it's yellow. Yeah.
They just have really cool little creative things in their store.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I might need to buy some A24 merch, especially after today's episode.
Yeah.
Man, lots to talk about today.
Oh, so much to talk about.
All I have to say is, oh man, this movie was good.
You loved it?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved it. I actually like, if everyone's listening in order, there's been a couple movies that the Sam's, sometimes I'm like, well, this movie was fine. And he's like, this movie was garbage. And I'm like, oh, this movie was funny. And you're like, oh man, it scared me. And I'm like, I really hope that Sam liked this movie because there's a lot to talk about.
Wait, can I ask you? I know we're going to do the plot review. We're going to tell you who was in the movie, all that. But I really want to know before we do anything, before I give you any hints, how do you think I would rate this movie on the scary scale?
Oh, you want to just jump to the end?
Yeah, I really do.
So I could probably give a better assessment after we discuss it,
well,
right?
Of course.
But based on what I know, I mean, there's some true life parallels in this movie that is the foundation of it. That both I saw in the movie and that I found in a little bit of reading, got in a little bit of a Reddit rabbit hole. I'll tell you, I gave it like a 7 probably.
Okay. All right.
Because there were parts that like, that disturbed me to the point that I paused it and rewound it and we'll talk about it. But, man, I feel like you probably, I'm going to say that you gave it a 7 also.
Oh, just the same, just that we're just on the same wavelength, thinking the exact same.
Yeah.
But you're thinking
we're locked in.
On the high end for sure.
On the high end. Sure.
Okay.
And I don't even know, 7 might be too high for me. I didn't compare it to any other movies, but in the moment afterwards, I was like, and maybe it's, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't compare it to any others, but maybe we'll say a 6 or 7.
Okay.
I swear to God, if you say a 2, then it's over.
No, I definitely would not give it a 2. Do you want me to tell you my number now?
No, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
First, let's recap it for the folks. So to tell you who was in it and who did the things with the movie, Talk to Me came out in 2022, right? So pretty recent. Directed by Danny Philippou and Michael Philippou or Philippou. Written by Danny Philippou, Bill Hinsman, and Daley Pearson. Starring Ari McCarthy, Hamish Phillips, and Kit Earhart Bruce. IMDb gave it a 7.1 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes, surprise, surprise, gave it a 94% and an 82% audience score. So for those of you that haven't seen it, Sam, why don't you give them the quick rundown of this movie?
So here's what happened in this movie. So the story centers around Mia and her close friends Jade and Riley, brother and sister. Mia has lost her mother in recent years, and so in an apparent suicide, and so she's dealing with the grief of losing her mother, which is really important, central to the story. And there's this, they're seeing on social media, Mia and her friend Riley, that there's something happening like at their high school where kids are getting possessed. So they go to investigate what's going on, and they go to one of these parties, and there's this plaster hand. And they participate in this ritual where they light a candle, they hold the hand, they say the words, "Talk to me," and then they can see spirits. Then they invite the spirits to come into their bodies. They get possessed for 90 seconds, no more. And what's kind of freaky about it is for them, it's like a game. Like they experience it almost like a high. Unfortunately, Jade's younger brother, Riley, wants to try this ritual, and they agree to let him do it for a short time period. But when he's doing it, Mia thinks that her mother has possessed Riley, and she has an opportunity to talk to her mother. So they end up going more time than they intended, and he ends up getting like super fucked up. He like self-harms and is possessed by this demon to the point where they're like, oh my gosh, he's stuck like this forever. Long story short, Mia ends up seeing images of her mother in different places. She ends up kind of being driven crazy by her experience with this hand. We could probably debate the science of it later. But she ends up being, the spirits convince her that the only way to free Riley from his possession is to put him out of his misery, aka end his life. He's in the hospital because of what happened to him when he was going through this ritual. She convinces Jade to leave the hospital. She convinces Riley's mother to leave the room. She ends up kidnapping Riley from the hospital, wheeling him down towards a highway. We're thinking she's going to like toss him into the road to be hit by a car. Well, Jade finds her just in time. We're not entirely sure. I don't know. You can tell me what you saw, Chris, but I'm not entirely sure how this happened, what happened. Mia ends up, we see her in the middle of the highway. She's been hit by a car. She is dead. The final scene of the movie is her seeing a candle being lit in the distance. She sees a hand reaching out towards her, and she's now realizing that she is the spirit that someone is asking to commune with her and being invited into their life. End of movie. It was crazy.
It was crazy. So you mentioned, and I'm just jumping right in, right? Because so you mentioned the part at the end, and you said what happened. When you said you weren't sure exactly what happened when she had the wheelchair?
I don't know how she got in the street. Did she throw herself in the street? Did Jade throw her in the street?
So the key is she was there, and in that moment, her mom says to her, we know it's not her mom. First of all, rule number 1, evil spirits are always evil tricksters. Haven't you seen The Exorcist?
Them in.
Don't think they're your mom. Step 1, it's not your mom. It's an evil spirit. They're always going to trick you. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
But so early on, right? Early on in the movie, they talk about how if someone dies, then they have your soul forever. And so the last thing her mom says to her before we see her in the street and hear the car crash is, her mom saying this is the only way to save him, etc. She's like feeding this like craziness in her brain. And then her mom, quote unquote, will have him forever. And then you see a change on her face, because that saying will have him forever was the moment she realized this isn't my mom. So then she throws herself in the street to like end it.
Oh.
To end Yeah.
We
So
see
in
her
that
take her
moment,
hands off the wheelchair, so I assumed she had like a
yeah,
change of heart. She was starting to achieve
yeah,
some clarity, but I wasn't sure how she got into the highway. Was it
yeah. It was
self-inflicted or was
it,
she pushed?
yeah, it was the phrase. It was the phrase that gave her a little bit of clarity. And
Mm.
in that moment, she did the like, I mean, and honestly, her character arc went pretty dark. She becomes the villain partway through as far
Yeah.
as like the person that's, harm, like out to harm this kid. Vicariously, the demons are torturing her into thinking that's the only way to save him. Um, so in that moment, she experiences a little bit of. It's honestly, I hadn't thought about this, but it's like the end of The Exorcist in a way. In a way, when the father takes the spirit into himself, and then in that moment, and then the spirit takes over, and then he is just strong enough to just throw himself
Oh yeah.
out the window and
Yeah,
down
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
stairs. And so,
This is how we get rid of
similarly,
the demon. It's just I have to end myself. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, because she's so influenced at this point that in that moment of clarity, another moment later, she could have been re-influenced and pushed him. So in that moment of clarity, she's like, holy shit. And she throws herself in the street. They try to do a little bit of trickery where she gets up and walks around, but I don't know about you. I was like, oh, she did. Yeah, she's not.
Well, I
She's
think
not.
that was her now, like on the other side, right? Because then
It
she's
was
like,
no, it was,
yeah,
it was. Did you realize right away that she got up?
trickery
Like,
that we were maybe going to think that, oh, she survived. That's
yeah,
true. I did think that actually. I was like, oh, she's
I was
okay.
like, I was like, she's dead. I was like, shit.
Well,
She's
something
dead.
I didn't understand is that they had this like 90-second rule where they were like, as
Right.
long as you get off the hand and blow out the candle within 90 seconds, whatever came in is out and you're okay. Mia never went beyond the 90 seconds, apparently.
No, she did the first time because they couldn't get the hand off of her.
Oh.
When she did it, the hand wouldn't let go during
Yeah.
one of her possessions.
Yeah.
And it stayed beyond 90 seconds.
So this whole time, that like ongoing conflict with her thinking that she was seeing her mother, and then when she was sucking the guy's toes,
yeah,
all of that was because the thing was still inside of her.
Something was still with her. And I do think that that's one of the plot areas that's a little bit vague.
Yeah.
Because also the 90-second rule was made by these dumb kids who got the hand off of someone who we saw in the opening scene, who you did mention it, right? But like the opening scene where the kid the guy's trying to get his brother out, and then his brother stabs him and stabs himself in the face.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Welcome to A24. And then they get the hand off of him. And so like these kids are already stupid. And putting people's lives in danger when this guy obviously just died, and they're just like, well, we'll just do this thing. So that 90-second rule arbitrarily made up, and they're like, okay, well, they set that barrier. But I think that the way that they get around the plot hole is by saying, well, it definitely held on to her. Now, I would say maybe, and I'm really making this up, I didn't read this anywhere, but maybe because of her state of despair, and I have a little bit to talk about like the hand in hand when it comes to despair and horror. And I think that A24 taps into despair and horror because I think that you can roll from one to the other very easily.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of like emotional drama in this.
Yeah. And I think she was never in a level-headed state of mind. So she may have been more receptive than the average teenager. Her mom committed suicide. She was distraught, potentially like potential drug use, addict issues. And in that moment, she's like addicted to this feeling. And so maybe she was more receptive to it. And also she had it on her hand for more than 90 seconds. They don't really revisit how long it was on her hand.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I just had some like light bulbs going off in my head as you were saying that, because you said she had this like addictive draw to the hand. She said it felt amazing. She described the feeling of it, and she was like, it felt amazing, which clearly was not the case for everybody. Some people did it, and then they were like, fuck no, don't want to do that again. I hated that. So she's drawn to it. She also, at the end of the movie, as a mechanism to apparently to protect herself or protect her friends, she throws herself into the highway. So she kills herself.
Yeah.
There were hints that maybe her mother had some addiction issues because she took too much of something, but also it was a suicide. I don't know. I'm just having light bulbs go off, the connection between her and her mother.
So I didn't necessarily make the connection between her and her mom, which is interesting. Yeah, I guess that I would have to go back and watch it. It's hard to say but her mom, the truth that we find out is that her mom legitimately had a depression issue, and that she purposefully killed herself, right? By taking too many sleeping pills. Now that we don't find that out till later, although pretty early on I was like, that sounds like a weird accidental thing that was kind of that we find out her dad kind of made up to try to like ease the pain. But the addiction thing though, and that's what I found. And that's what, honestly, I read a little bit about this online, but the like addiction's kind of the through point of the story. So while you say some people didn't like it, well, when they're doing the party, when the next person gets on and then they're showing it and they're repeatedly doing it. And even Mia, she says, talk to me. She's freaked out by what she sees. And then she says, I let you in. She goes through that experience. And afterwards, she's like, oh my God, it felt amazing. So it's like this scary experience, but they're doing it for the rush.
Yes.
Like the kids are doing it for the rush.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's scary. It's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Drugs. It's scary. It's dangerous, but we're doing it for the rush. But she, and this will kind of go into to something I looked up, but she's already kind of like, her mom committed suicide. She hasn't been level-headed since. They hint at stuff about when she smoked weed. And she's like, oh, I only did it once. And, there's hints that she was doing other drugs and may have had a drug issue. She talks about wanting to go to the party because it was her mom's death anniversary, which is not a real term, I don't think. But she was looking for anything to take her out of reality. Right? She's looking for anything to just like make her numb. Did you catch at the beginning of the movie she's sneezing a lot? And she sneezed like 2 or 3 times. I wrote it down and I was like, it seems like a random thing. And then it never comes back to it.
What do you think that was?
So someone can fact check me on this, but I pulled this up on Reddit about what people were saying. And one user said several substances when ceased after regular and prolonged use can cause withdrawal symptoms similar to cold due to how they interact in the body's central nervous system. Common symptoms include aches, fevers, chills, sniffles, sneezy, runny nose. And that was this. So this was a Reddit article about this movie. So it was like small hints that maybe she already had a drug use issue problem as she was trying to continually numb herself from this tragedy that was her mom and her mom's death. She numbed herself. She didn't connect with her father a year later. Like she didn't talk to her father. And so, it seemed like she was trying to find those things. So she already was, so she found this, and so she couldn't quit. I actually talked to someone at work today. Randomly, they were like, I just watched Talk to Me. And I was like, that's weird. Cause so did I. And they were like, why didn't she just stop? Because they say, well, if you stop using it, the spirits go away, which is what saves Riley in the end, right? Finally, I mean, he's been away from it long enough. He starts to wake up, but she couldn't stop. She was addicted. Every solution to her, the only solution was to do it again.
Let's try one more thing.
Let me do it one more time and let me try this thing. Let me do it one more time. And so her addiction got the best of her. She was unable to stop. And so the only way to stop was to kill herself.
Oh, wow. See, I saw that, but I didn't quite connect the dots in that way. What scared me, what I did find like truly kind of horrifying about the movie is the way that this group of teenagers knows that this thing is dangerous and has potential consequences because they got it from someone who, like you said, there was a prior episode where someone ends up killing himself and seriously injuring somebody else, his brother. So they know this thing is dangerous, but they're doing it, and they're laughing. They're like, I mean, there's that montage where they're all like, it's like taking hits over and over and over. And actually, I thought the music that they chose for this was like a really fun track. And like, it was a viral audio on like TikTok and Instagram a couple of months ago.
I don't remember what it was.
I'll have to, I bet I can find it and play it for you real quick. Because as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, this is fun audio. So there's this feeling of like, oh, we're having a good time. We're doing this thing. It's like dangerous. But that's what I thought was so scary is because back in my mind, I'm like, you guys, like, someone's gonna get fucked up. Like, you're willfully ignorant, and this just feels so stupid, and that's what makes it so scary.
but also it's what makes it also parallel young teenagers doing crazy drugs just for the feeling, right? Like I'm just gonna do this. We're gonna pass. I mean, like parties where there's just bowls of pills and they just pass it around and they pop it
just
and see what they feel. And I don't know what that looks like in today's day and age, right? Because I'm pretty far removed from teenage years, but I think back to what people did in my youth and even past my youth, and I didn't take place in most of that. Thank goodness. I joined the Navy at like 18. But you know what I mean? But kids do it all the time. They do dangerous, silly stuff. The brain's atrophied until your mid 20s or whatever, decision-making skills. And so it's very representative of a party that gets out of hand and people taking stuff that, may or may not be laced with something else that they don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And so then they're just,
it's like, and it's fun until it's not. That I think you see the arc through the movie where you're like, oh my God, this is crazy, but it's funny. We're like laughing at people as they're like getting choked by this demon. Haha. And then it's like, but then it becomes a fucking problem. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
And then for Mia, I think that's really cool how you put it. It's like other people are like, no, we're done with this. We're walking away from it.
Yeah.
She cannot.
She cannot.
It's just like the mind of an addict. Like, how do I solve this problem? Let's try it again. What if we just what if we try and blow out the candle and do it this way? Yeah. And it's like, no, you have to stop. But she can't. She's addicted to it.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, I found this audio.
Okay.
It's actually from the movie. I thought that they borrowed it from like TikTok or Instagram. I think TikTok and Instagram borrowed it from this movie. See if you remember this. Can you hear it?
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it goes on and on. It's fun.
But yeah, it was very playful, like circusy, but dark. Like there was deep and
yeah. It was like, I almost want to try this. Wait, no, I don't. What am I talking about?
Okay, I definitely didn't think that, but you're right. It kind of sucks you into the moment.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, I was watching it like, they're stupid.
Yeah,
but anyway, it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting way to show like the teenage problem, like of them all just being dumb young people, and then there's peer pressure involved, right? People who don't want to do it, let's pressure them into it. It helped because they had like. Haley, the mean girl kind of bully like character who's like, oh, I don't really like these people. But then she ends up being more rational later on, even like she's like kind of just like, we're just cutting this out. Just burn that shit when you're done.
Yeah.
But then Mia's just like,
do you think they gave Mia the hand or did Mia take it from them?
Oh, so she ended up with it. That's a good question. In the scene that we have not talked about yet, which I would definitely want to talk about because that scene was the most impactful scene of the movie to me, the scene with Riley. But after that, like blood's everywhere. They're calling ambulances. They're doing stuff. They're probably cleaning up. Maybe she just stashed it in her bag to take it. Or maybe in all the panic, she just like shoved it in a bag. I feel like you can kind of go either way with it. I think in the moment, I just assumed that, they were like, hide that, do that, get rid of it or whatever. And she had it. But it's a good point that maybe in that situation, she stashed it. I will say, although she wanted to keep trying things again because of her addiction to the experience, I immediately thought, did they blow out that candle? So when they revisited it, I was like, yeah. Obviously that didn't work, but I did in the moment think, I don't think it blew out. I
wonder if it had worked if he had been able to say it when they were trying to do that. Okay, so for listeners, so Riley has been possessed, right? He did the whole thing for more than 90 seconds. He then had this crazy, I know you want to talk about the scene because it was pretty violent. And actually it was pretty shocking. I was like, oh, this scares me, right? It's a lot of like head banging against the wall, blood. He's trying to rip his own eyeball out. So he's in the hospital with like a fucked up face. And they were like, maybe the problem is that he's still possessed. And we know that if we, at the end of the ceremony, you're supposed to blow the candle out and that like ends the possession. So maybe if we restart the ceremony with the lit candle and blow out the candle, then that will solve this problem. So they're doing this in the hospital. Yeah. But the thing is, I feel like to start the ceremony, I thought that the person touching the hand had to say the words and it's like, he can't talk.
Yeah.
So how are they going to restart the ceremony?
Yeah. He's already broken the connection from the hand. Yeah. There's flaw in the logic. I mean, it wasn't the worst idea, but to think that might work, it was like, well, that was a good shot.
Yeah.
So to talk about this scene, right? looked at that scene, and so we've kind of been revisiting each episode. This whole Stephen King, the horror, the terror, and the gross out. I looked at that scene like the perfect trifecta of the three.
Oh yeah.
That scene, like, here's the thing: scary movies don't really impact me a lot, right? We know that. Paranormal Activity had us on the edge of the seat. You turn the movie off, I'm kind of creeped out. I'm like, shit, there's ghosts. I'm gonna die. But movies don't really impact me a lot and have me just kind of like, like whatever that feeling is, like on the edge of my seat, uncomfortable, shocking, like, but that scene. And so when I find a scene like that, even though it was so disturbing, and maybe this makes me a freak, but I'm like, I need to rewind that and watch it again. When I find something that just like captures me so much so, I'm like, let me watch it again. I don't really know why, but I did that with that scene.
Wow, yeah.
I did. Yeah. And so of course, like, he's possessed. He and this came up with my discussion with the person at work. Because immediately, like, the trickster demon spirit starts talking like Mia's mom and makes her think it's her. So in that moment, she's like, no, wait, don't blow it out. It's my mom. And the person I work with was like, she's only thinking about herself. And I'm like, this woman, she is not level-headed. She is not in that moment. She's not really thinking. She's just like, oh my God, it's my mom. She's not thinking clearly. Mm-hmm. Honestly, she really wasn't thinking clearly most of the movie. Let's be honest. But yeah, she thinks it's her mom. And then he starts bashing his head on the table. His chair is then flung against the wall. It turns the way it just turns on its own very strategically.
Mm-hmm.
And then his head bangs against the thing again. And the sister saves him by putting her hand in the way. And he's laughing and it's like blood everywhere. And he like even touches his eyeball and almost rips his own eyeball out.
Yeah. Ugh.
So all that to say, gross out, obviously. There's blood. It's shocking. The head banging, the blood, the gore, the touching the eyeball. That's the gross out. Matched. Done. Horror. We see this happening. We see his chair flying against the wall. We see him banging his head. We see all this. And that is the horror. And the terror is the fact that it's all being done by something we can't see.
Yeah.
And by something possessing this kid. Yeah. And that he's inside there somewhere, like, having to endure this.
Well, and I think too, the context of like the build up to this of like, he's the younger brother under the protection of his older sister and his friend who's like his sister's age. The sister has like left the room and he was like, oh, please let me just, I mean, it's literally like, oh, let me just have like one beer or let me just have one cigarette or let me just, there was that whole cigarette scene I completely forgot about. Or, let me just have like one hit of whatever you're taking. Right. And they're like, okay, fine, just one. And then it turns out that the one thing that he takes is the thing that's like laced or whatever it is that I'm not a hardcore drug user, so I don't know the right terminology here. But like the context of all of that, and it's like, this is like what is he, 10, 11 years old, and knowing that he's the young one in the group and he's getting the most fucked up is just like, like,
and that's what made it so disturbing, right? Like, you could have seen any of the adults have that happen, but like you said, he's the innocent kid who just wants to be part of the group. He just wants to try the thing. He looks around him. He sees all the bad influence surrounding him and just wants to be part of the group. And then Mia, who's not super level-headed, is just like, okay. Well, and she tries to even be a little bit level-headed. I'll give her a little credit in that she's like, okay, maybe 50 seconds. Mm-hmm. In my mind, I'm like, 30 seconds max.
Yeah.
But,
in and out of there.
But you know, like, she at least tried to negotiate and whatever. But then he ends up getting it was shocking. It was not enjoyable to watch, but it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as she starts talking to her mom, I'm like, no, this is going to go bad. That's not your mom. And then it turned into, holy fuck is what I wrote down.
Yeah.
Cause it was crazy. And there were other scenes that were shocking, and like the flash through of when she's talking to the spirit that lets her in the hospital.
Oh, the little girl, and then she sees
the little
hell.
girl.
Apparently, is that what it was?
She sees basically what looks like hell. Yeah. I think one of those is like someone eating a baby. I don't know. It reminded me of the witch. Yeah. I wanted to dig in a little bit and kind of. I didn't take the time, like, a normal movie review YouTube channel or something, to like review each scene and go through it, but it was effectively what looked like hell and him being held down. Like, there were some pretty shocking scenes, but that one definitely, like, that was the most impactful scene to me.
I think like what I really like about this movie, what makes it really terrifying, is that there was there wasn't a ton of like that. I think that was like the big scene, right, with Riley, but there wasn't like a ton of those. There wasn't like we didn't see like 6 murders. There wasn't like an exuberant amount of like gore, guts, blood. That scene felt that it was like it was very visceral. The head slamming on the table really freaks me out. But they didn't leverage jump scares. They didn't. True. I felt an emotional connection to these scenes. When I think about, like, I'm the oldest of 4. So if I was at home alone with my 3 younger siblings and we were doing something that would cause harm to one of them, that level of harm, and then having to tell my mom or dad, right?
Yeah.
That fucking scary, right?
And that was my question, is to try, because I'm always going to try to figure out where you draw the personal connection, because I know that's it. So I was trying to think of it like, where did Sam find that connection? But you were thinking of it if it was you and your siblings, and this was a situation. And I think maybe if it had just been possession and not so paralleled to teenage, dumb, young action, like we talked about paralleling, just a party with people being dumb. Had it been like something completely different, maybe you would have had less of a feeling about it. But because it was kind of realistic in that there are things that could cause this to happen, maybe you don't believe in possession, but you believe in teenagers being dumb. And
that's it. It's like the context matters. It's not just possession or demons or spirits or ghosts. That's like, oh my God, I'm scared. It's like, this is the perfect recipe for disaster, and it's something that feels very like real and palpable and tangible. Even like things like, oh, they're using their phones all throughout the movie, and the way that they're like, oh, let's take this, oh, let's laugh at it, rather than like helping them, right? That just connect. It just I just felt connected to reality, right?
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm really like.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think I get it, and that's why. I'm walking this path of, because I can sign off and watch this movie that's super scary and not connect it to reality and be like, great movie. But so I'm always, now I'm a little more conscious of like, oh, what's Sam gonna think about this one? Sooner or later, I'm gonna crack the code. By season 23, I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna have it.
For all the scary movie haters out there.
For all the scary movie haters that are also scared by comedies. Anyway, moving on. Just kidding. Go watch the menu episode where Sam said that the laughter caused him fear.
It's very scary.
It's sure. So when you were talking about scary, I was like, when we were talking about scary movies, that's dumb. That's what we talked about. But partway through this movie, I thought, I feel like this is formulaic. Not that I didn't like the movie because of it, but I was like, I feel like there's a formula to this, and it's not every scary movie, but I was thinking about movies like The Ring, or I think movies like It Follows. There's movies of this genre, and I don't know what that genre is. Like, it's a certain type of horror movie, but like there's a certain formula, and I wrote this formula down. But then this movie I appreciated diverted from that formula, and even like threw me off a little bit, because it was literally kind of mid-movie. And so I wrote, like, right after they went to go talk to the brother of the guy that died at the beginning, I was like, oh, of course they're going back to talk to someone that experienced it before, because that's a common trope, right? So I paused it, and I'm writing this down, and then I'm like trying to predict what happened, but I ended up again being a little bit wrong. But what I wrote down was, I was like, so tragic, weird, shocking opening that shows like we know that some shit goes down by doing whatever it is that the movie's about. Story building, we learned what's despairing our character. We're learning about the character, what's going on. And then at some point, bad shit starts to happen, and then starts to escalate, and bad shit continues to happen, and it's happening more frequently. It's getting out of control. And then we find out someone else has experienced this. So then they go to them for advice. Now, and so I'll stop there, parallel it to like The Ring, because I know you saw that a million years ago, right? So we open up the movie, we get a glimpse into it, then we find out what's going on. They watch the tape, then they find out they're going to die. Her boyfriend dies or whatever. Then they're like, oh, I found her. Her parents lived on this island or whatever. So then they go to try to learn something. They get some new ideas in their head, and they're like, this is how we stop it, right? Then they try that thing, and then they think they stopped it. And then they find out they didn't. And then the movie ends with a cliffhanger showing you they actually lost, the end. And so there's a formula, and this movie felt like that. As soon as they started going to talk to his brother, I was like, okay, this is the part where they go get advice. Then they're going to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to think it worked, and then it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was wrong. So they did try something new. They went to the hospital. They tried the candle thing.
Right.
However, then it diverted and completely shifted, right? It shifted. She goes home. She stabs her father in the neck, and then she becomes the villain. And then now it's up to the other people to stop her. And then finally, in the end, she stops herself. And then we get that end sequence where now she's the ghost. And so it definitely, I appreciated that because I'm always figuring out what's going to happen. And I thought I had this figured out because it just felt like that same type of movie.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that they broke the mold a little bit.
I read
whatever that mold.
I read in Esquire a little bit about, well, they did a profile of this movie. They also did a profile of the creators of this movie, which I can't wait to tell you all about them. You mentioned them earlier, Michael and Danny Philippou or Philippa. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So anyway, but they were the writer of this article talked about like the hand itself being a bit of a red herring. Like we think that's going to be the super scary thing, and it is pretty freaking scary. Right. But really, at the end of the movie, what we learn is like the thing that is truly horrific is Mia. She becomes, like you said, she becomes the villain, and it's not that she inherently is a bad person. It's just it's her grief of losing her mother, her addiction. I kind of this may not. I'm gonna pitch this as if it's like some. Oh wow! How did you figure that out? But the title of the movie, "Talk to Me," and the thing they say to the hand, "Talk to me." It's like if you're dealing with grief from losing a family member, you probably need to build community and find some love and support. Maybe you need to go to a therapist. What is a therapist going to say when you sit down and you're lying on the couch and they're like, hey, you have some problems. Talk to me about them, right? But instead of going to friends, family, therapy, she's like, let's go commune with these spirits. And so clearly that choice is leading her down this path, which is, ultimately turning her into the villain. And like you said, I think that kind of, it's not really a plot twist, but it's like it's a redirection in the movie that I think keeps it fresh and like makes it pretty compelling.
Yeah. And it's really like, it makes it, I mean, I think we've obviously talked about this extensively, but it makes it, it's her struggle gets worse and worse, and her addiction, her inability to stop it gets out of control to the point where she basically, in her moment of clarity, has to decide because she is no longer in control and she won't be able to stop herself. Did you catch? This is out of left field, but did you catch at the end? So she goes through the whole sequence where she gets up from the street, then she's in the hospital and she sees like the kid leaving, she sees her dad leaving, and she hasn't quite realized it yet. But did you catch the part where she sees, like when she realizes she's dead is when she looks in the mirror and
like
someone else walks by?
A recurring nightmare.
Like her nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah. That was an interesting, I appreciate that, like that interesting, weird callback to her nightmare from, but I just thought that was, it was a cool add-on.
Yeah, they did a nice job of like building and then calling back. Like there was the callback with the kangaroo, like put the kangaroo out of its misery. Which even before they showed it on the screen, I was like, oh, that's why we had the whole kangaroo scene earlier with Mia and Riley, and then of course they showed us the kangaroo. But yeah, they did a pretty nice job with that.
The last really thing I have to say, and I think that this is like everything that we've been talking about, is because I got on my Reddit rabbit hole and I found someone that actually I think articulated how I felt about this movie. And so I just wanted to like put that out. So Charred Frog is the user's name. Said, saw this a few weeks ago and the final scene has been seared in my brain ever since. It genuinely felt like watching someone's synapses fire off all at once. And then boom, Mia's now part of the game. Even though it's fairly standard possession horror film, which I concur with, right? Pretty standard.
Right.
I think the movie is really special when it does shit like this, and it does it often enough. It's so atmospheric and tense throughout the movie, and the imagery is gross and visceral. Same word you used.
Yeah.
It's not overly gory, but what is there actually stays with you. It's impactful. And then they said, also Sophia Wilde is fucking amazing, and I can't wait to see her in other stuff.
Is that Mia?
Mia. Yeah. Mia. Yeah. She did a fantastic job. Anyway,
amazing.
I read that and I was like, well, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
About the movie in general.
Totally. I agree. I had a couple of scenes. I had quite a few moments where I was doing this. If you can't see me, I wouldn't close my eyes, but I would like look away and like try and put my hand in front between myself and the screen because I was like, no, oh God, I can't look. And then I would, of course, have to look, so I had to know what was going on. But it was just like, So the guys who made this movie, you mentioned them earlier, Michael and Danny Philippou.
Filippo.
I'd probably Google how to pronounce their names. These guys are they're twin brothers. They're Australian, which you'll notice this movie took place in Australia. All the actors were Australian. This was their so they directed the movie, and this was their first like feature film that they directed. They got their start as YouTube creators. They have a YouTube channel.
Oh, interesting.
Their YouTube channel is called Raka Raka, if you've ever heard of it. 6.8 million people have heard of it and subscribed to it.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And I watched a few snippets of their videos. I actually realized I was like, oh wait, I've seen like clips of these that other accounts have like borrowed and reposted on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Some of this stuff was familiar. Wikipedia describes their YouTube channel as having horror comedy, surreal comedy, action, satire, psychological horror. Some examples of some of the video, and this is all relevant, I think, to like the creation of Talk to Me. But some examples of the types of content they've created and posted on YouTube. I saw a recent one that was like Star Wars versus Harry Potter. There was another one that was like Ronald McDonald versus characters from Sesame Street. So it's kind of like a hypothetical, like what if these two universes were to meet and then they had a fight? How would it go? But the fights are like pretty visceral and violent. Now they're funny. They're like, they're comedic, but they're like Ronald McDonald like smashes in Big Bird's head and then like rips his head off. It's like pretty visceral.
I mean, it sounds pretty fun.
It's pretty fun. So they have a lot of like special effects and like this like raucous comedy type videos. I don't know how they got started with Talk to Me, but Esquire did like a profile on the brothers, just like getting to know their like history and how they started their YouTube channel and what their inspiration was. They started making videos when they were really young, like 9 years old. Wow. They said one of the movies that we created that sticks out in their memory is a movie called Evil Flamingo. Or they say it's a series of movies. They would use their sister's flamingo doll to pretend it was murdering a bunch of people. They were like 10, 11 years old. And they were just learning how to like use practical effects. So they would like use tomato sauce as blood and like put fake eyes, and then the flamingo would like pull the eyes out. And so they just were learning how to
like flamingos do, right?
Like flamingos do, or like demons get people to do when they get possessed and Talk to Me.
Also true.
But they said that part of their inspiration for Evil Flamingo was Chucky. It's like they wanted to do like an evil doll, killer doll.
They had
situation.
like a doll,
yeah,
but it's a flamingo doll.
But all they had was a flamingo, so they were like, "Yeah, let's just use a flamingo and make our own version of Chucky."
That's very creative, actually. I kind of wish I would have done that.
Right?
Instead, I was taking big pieces of cardboard and trying to see if I could fly, but it didn't work.
Do you have anything in your house that would be your like stand-in for your evil?
Oh,
I'm looking around.
No, I don't have enough evil paraphernalia in my house. I feel like I need more.
Well, I think what makes it funny is that it's not evil. Right?
That's a good point. You're right. Something good that you then make evil.
Yeah. Like I have a teddy bear that I bought at the Navy Exchange in Virginia, and it's wearing like a little Navy t-shirt. It's like really cute. I was going to give it to one of my cousin's kids like 10 years ago when he was born, and I never did, and I still have it. So anyway.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah. So Evil Flamingo.
So that could be your evil, your nice evil stuffed thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Run around committing murders in the middle of the night.
Yeah, maybe we should make this a side thing. We'll just copy them. We'll be the US version, but much older than they were when they. Anyway, maybe not.
I think what's cool about these guys, they're like 31 years old or something. I don't know how they are, but they're like in their young 30s. They just started creating when they were kids, and they've just made all these videos over the years, and here they are directing a film that got picked up at A24. So they made the film and then submitted it to the Sundance Festival in Utah. So that's where it premiered. the way it works is Sundance gets like thousands of submissions every year, and then only certain films get selected to actually be shown at the film festival. So at that point, it had already been created. The film had already been made. It was just premiering, and then at the premiere, that's where it basically gets recognized, or it gets like studios are like, oh, this is good. We want to buy this film, and then we want to distribute it. So that's after that is how A24 purchased Talk to Me.
I just had no idea that that's how it worked. Like how many films are getting submitted, which is impressive. I don't know what kind of a budget they had, but like this is a pretty well produced movie, right? So it's
I wonder if we can find that real quick.
It's pretty impressive that they came out with this, and the A24 was like, yes, please, we'll take it.
The budget was $4.5 million. Box office, 92 million.
Yeah, so they made their money. Yeah,
they made their money. And when I look at, so I'm just on the movies like Wikipedia page, it says production companies include Screen Australia, South Australian Film Corporation, Adelaide Film Festival, Investment Fund, Headgear Films, Metro Technology, Causeway Films, distributed by Maslow Entertainment, Umbrella Entertainment, Ahi Films, but I don't see anything about A24.
Weird.
So I don't know where.
It's interesting.
What?
Like where does their involvement plug in? I don't know.
Oh,
that's probably.
Here we go. It became American distributor, A24's highest grossing horror film and second highest grossing film overall. So maybe it wasn't included.
It said it was A24's second highest grossing film overall?
Second highest grossing film overall.
Of all A24 movies. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like this movie just came out like a year ago, or I don't know, something.
Yeah.
But it came, I remember it coming out and adding it to the list. But that's interesting. I didn't realize, and I hadn't even looked, but I didn't realize it did that well. I mean, it got a great Rotten Tomato score, obviously, but I didn't realize it grossed so much.
Well, you know,
but I guess when I saw the preview, I mean, I wanted to see it, and I guess anyone that is looking for this type of movie is probably thought the same thing. I just didn't go see it in theaters because honestly, I wanted to watch it and talk about it here.
Yeah. Well, I think we might be seeing the start of a new horror franchise. There is a sequel coming.
What?
Yeah.
Is it called Talk to Us? Is it I'll talk to you later?
Talk to you later.
Talk to me on the phone?
It's Talk to the Hand.
Is it like A Quiet Place and Talk to Me, and it's like Talk to Me in sign
language?
Which
one? Is it? Ooh.
I knew you'd like that. Is it Talk to Me Quietly? Is it Whisper to Me? Is it Yell to Me? Anyway, I'm done.
I think those are all the sequels that will come out over the next 2 decades. Yeah.
Interesting. When's the sequel coming?
On like season 17 of Scary Movie Fright Night, we'll explain all of the I don't know when it's coming. It's just currently in production, it said.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's cool. I mean, I'm down for it. I will be. And, sequels are a tricky subject in all realms, but I'll be curious to see, how do you match this? Like, you keep it in the same universe? Is it another unique story?
Well, remember the end of this movie?
She's there, correct.
And
right?
the people who are communing with her, they were speaking Spanish?
Oh, yeah, there's
totally different group of people somewhere else.
But I don't know. But that's the question, right? Is do they utilize that and continue it, or do they just kind of do something fresh? Do they tie something back with Mia? Is she not in it? There's a lot of avenues.
I want them to make a sequel where it's not the hand, it's other body parts.
Okay, we know what that movie looks like to Sam. And what would you say to that body part? Nope. Moving on.
Okay, we'll edit that out.
Anyway, I'll
get in trouble for that one.
It's fine. I'm assuming you meant feet or ears or knees.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe elbows. Yeah, it'll be like elbow, and you grab the elbow and you say,
"Come along,
elbow me." Nope, that's not fun.
Yeah,
this is why I don't write movies.
But it is kind of a cool concept for a new universe. Like,
it is
because it's not one character, one villain that you have to figure out. Like, oh, did they die and then they come back, or like what? How do they persist? Yeah. It's the medium to then access the demons, and you could take it different parts of the world. You could take it different generations. Like everybody has different demons they're trying to work through.
But you've got to make the story good and you've got to break the mold of the first one
Mm-hmm.
because you can't repeat the story.
Can't be the same thing.
And so and so it can't be the same thing. There's another movie, Smile, which you haven't seen, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but it ends I don't remember exactly how it ends, but it's it's they're making Smile too. And there was the It Follows movie, which I don't know if they're making a sequel, but they're that similar genre of like there's an entity that is kind of with you, that's affecting you, that's driving you, and you're trying to figure out how to stop it.
Yeah.
So it's similar in that fashion, even though this entity turns into her, and like again, they kind of went down a different path. But when I think about Smile 2, I'm like, well, how are you going to top the first one, which was pretty good? And we'll get to it, I'm sure, eventually. But how do you, they sure do it. You will definitely make your money. People will go see it. But also, it's hard. It's harder than making an original movie to take a movie like this that did so well and then sequel it. So I mean, we'll watch it. I'm happy for them. I hope it's great. I'm skeptical. I'm a little worried. I'm worried because again, you talk about, oh, well, you take it here and you do a story, but that's not enough. That's not enough for the story to be good. It's got to be a completely unique story that captures us the way this did, but we're going to go in with expectations.
Well, that's true. Anyway. And I think with the right people making it, it's possible, right? If you have the right creative process and the right like collaboration. Yep. So that's actually something kind of interesting. Coming back to, I wanted to tell you more about the Philippou brothers. I really hope we're not saying it wrong and saying it weird. It's like they're Greek, Philippou. It might be like totally different, and we're just shitting on their last name. But I think they had an opportunity early on to work with like a bigger studio, like a big distribution, bigger film studio, and they turned it down because they wanted to do things their way, including like filming in Australia and like using Australian cast. And I read an example of when they were shooting that montage scene that whoever their bosses were like, you're not going to be able to get that many shots in the time that we have available. Like we have limited time, we have limited budget. Like you're not gonna be able to get the shots. And they said, we're going to do this the way that we make YouTube videos. I don't know what that means exactly, but basically they ran that day. They were like, let's get this shot. Let's get that shot. Boom, boom, move really fast, sloppy, like really quick. And later somebody was like this is not how we produce feature films. Like we can't do it this way all the time, but they were like, we're going to do it our way so that we can get this montage the way that we want it. And they did. That was kind of a fun scene in the movie. Okay. So,
well, I appreciate, And so, and they've been doing this for a really long time, obviously not making movies, but I think as long as they stick to what they know and stick to their creativity, then I'll have a little more faith that maybe they'll produce something that's equally as good, which is, I mean, I don't know if you know this about like movies, but in general, like that's the big thing is that sequels are never as good as the original. There's a few movies, if you Google sequels that were as good or better than the original, there's like Terminator 2. That was like one of those like groundbreaking movies that people were like, oh my God, you took Terminator, which was a movie in the 80s that was like, no one's going to top this. And then the second one came out and it was good. Aliens, the sequel to Alien. Some people say that the second one's better than the first one. But it's a very common thing in all movie genres that like sequels.
Toy Story 2.
It's hard. Toy Story 2. Hocus Pocus 2. I actually haven't seen that. It was
pretty good. It was good.
Okay. Yeah. Did it top the first one?
That's hard to say.
Okay. Well, that's for the witch genre. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one.
We'll come back to it.
I'm going to send you this video that they put on their YouTube channel. Of course, they made like a YouTube channel or a YouTube video about making Talk to Me and about going to Sundance. But what you will love about it, I'm going to have to spoil this for you because I want to share this with our listeners now, is that
sure.
They previewed the movie at Sundance and then they started hearing from some of their heroes, which are some of, I guess I can claim them as our heroes too. Stephen King wanted to see this movie after it came out. Jordan Peele was like, oh, you guys, great job. Ari Aster, who did Midsommar and several other horror films that we've explored.
Yep.
Steven Spielberg.
And a couple, Ari Aster's known for some A24 movies.
Yes. Right? Yeah. But So
more than one.
I think this movie
that's impressive.
Is like launching their careers and the careers of like the cast. And, it was a big deal. It was a big deal for them.
I look forward to seeing what else they come up with. What kind of other stuff they have under their
well, I can tell you their
bag. What is that phrase? Under their cape, under their armpit? I don't know. What else they have in their satchel? What else they have? in their backpack, in the trunk of their car. What else do they? Couple bodies and a couple screenplays.
They're working on a Street Fighter film, like the video game.
Oh, interesting. But it's going to be like probably brutally and bloody.
It will probably be pretty crazy. Yeah, definitely.
That's fair.
Definitely.
Okay.
The last thing I wanted to say about these guys is that Danny, one of the two brothers, when he was 16 years old, was in a car accident where he said that like he was put in the hospital. Well, he described the experience of being in the car accident, how he was like asleep in the back of the car. They got T-boned in the middle of an intersection. They're like car spinning. He wakes up. He's like, are we dead? Like, what is happening? Then he ends up in the hospital with his face looking like the kid in this movie. Like he was like, I was like,
oh wow,
fucked up beyond all recognition.
Mangled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I think was a source of something that they were drawing on. He also described that when they were in high school, they would drive some of their neighbors to school. And he just had this thought, this like entrenched fear of like, what if something happened to their neighbors when they were driving and then they had to go and like face their parents and say like,
interesting,
I was driving, there was this crash, your kid's all fucked up, and now we got to come tell you about it, which is the same thing I was saying earlier about like with my younger siblings.
Yep.
Right. I've taken them under my wing. We're just hanging out at home. Something happens and then I have to go tell my parents like,
yep,
under my care, this is what happened to your children. It's a terrifying thought, which helped me connect to the movie in a way that affects my scary scale.
Well, and I think we've talked about this multiple times, but I think some of the best movies that strike fear come from the writers having something that struck fear in them and then being able to plug that in, which sounds easy, but like to plug that in and represent it in such a way to then pull that same emotional fear feeling from your audience. I mean, it's an art for sure. But I think some of the best movies, we learn that this is derived from something in their past that they were like, let me pull this in and plug that.
Yeah.
Let me pull this moment in my life where I was in this hospital and plug that. And what was it like for people seeing me in this mangled form? So it's interesting.
Ooh, that makes me wonder if you were to write a scary movie, or if I was to write a scary movie, what would be our experiences in life that we would call on to influence the story or the storytelling?
Well, the actor would be like super handsome and like buff. And
I'd have to get.
that would be the starting
Hemsworth
point
to play me, just to make it seem realistic. So when people see the movie, they'd be like, "Oh, that's Sam."
How about, maybe instead of Chris Hemsworth, like maybe Liam's Hemsworth can play you.
Why has it got to be Liam?
I don't know, just because you'd prefer Chris. I'm just trying to.
You know who would probably play me in a movie?
I was gonna come up with another Chris, and I was like, Chris O'Donnell. I'm like, what does he even do these days? I don't know, so I couldn't come up with anything.
I gotta say something funny. You know who probably would play me in a movie?
Who?
Do you know who Blippi is?
I don't.
My sister.
Wait, Someone was talking about Blippi recently.
We were talking about Blippi over Christmas when my sister was visiting because she has a 2-year-old. Blippi, another YouTuber, is like this like doofy, like dorky, like, it's entertainment for 2-year-olds. And my sister was like, you just Googled him?
I just Googled the image. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my sister was like, Blippi reminds us of you. And I was like, what does that mean? But she was like, just because you're, like whimsy, like fun, like silly. Not saying you look like Blippi or dress like Blippi, but I was like, great, I'm fucking Blippi. But what makes this kind of funny is that like we were also talking about scary movies. My sister's like, hell to the no, I'm not watching scary movies. Like that's not my thing.
Right.
And I was like, well, I wonder if your son, your 2-year-old, would like scary movies. And I was like, what if there was a scary movie about Blippi, where Blippi is a murderer, or maybe he gets murdered, or maybe he gets possessed. And of course we were like, this is so ridiculous, but like fun thought experiment. But then tying that back to the Philippou brothers and their Raka Raka YouTube channel is like, they're bringing in the silliness of like, what if Ronald McDonald beheaded fucking Big Bird? Like that's ridiculous.
And there are movies out there like, have you heard of the movie
the Winnie the Pooh horror movie?
Yes, the Blood and Honey one.
Yes.
I have not seen it. But it's like Christopher Robin abandons them, and so they become like feral or something. They're making a sequel. I don't even know if it's good, but they're funding another one. Yeah. And like, it's like the costumes don't even look real because it's Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
But then also it's probably super gory. We might end up watching it. We'll fit it in because I'm really honestly just for science. For curiosity's
science.
sake.
We should do a whole theme around like kids characters turning into like evil villains or something.
That's a good one. I need to come up with some more unique themes where I can just throw random ass movies in there and be like,
yeah,
this movie I threw in because I did. It's because it's kids characters that murder people. That's a good one.
Well, we should probably choose our next movie. Well, I guess we got to do our quick ratings.
Yep. Well, I already told you kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
But where do
you
want
to try?
Where do you fall?
Well, you said you think I'm about a 7.
Well, you didn't give me any positive feedback, and usually your face can't lie. So I'm gonna, man. You know what? I don't know. I don't know your scale.
I'm torturing
Get
you
out of here.
Okay.
What did
You're not far off. I would rate this pretty high on the scary scale. I'm
within 10.
Yeah, you're within 10 points. I was thinking a little bit scarier than a 7, more like a 9. Almost a 10. Almost a 10.
Okay.
Like there was many moments where I like did not want to look at the screen. I think the emotional connection to the characters, like the addiction just in general is like a very frightening thing. So it had all the right ingredients for a recipe to scare me. I was pretty scared.
I think that part of the reason that I didn't rate it so high for you is I didn't think about the connection of you and your siblings, right? Because I was just like, and then I also had that discussion with the person at work today. And she particularly had trouble, like there's addiction in her family and all that, but but from her perspective, she's like, just stop doing the thing. And we had a discussion about it. I'm like, well, she can't, right? Like she can't stop.
Yeah.
And she's maybe more prone to addiction. I think that's, genetically, some people are more prone. We don't know. Her mom, like maybe it was, I don't know.
Yeah.
But from her perspective, she found herself really frustrated because they kept doing the stupid stuff. It's like, what? Just don't do the stupid things. Right. And so I took away from that. I was like, where is Sam going to land? Because I know that you that I know of don't have an addiction. You're addicted to some things we're not going to talk about on this podcast, but
coffee?
Like you don't, I didn't, what?
Coffee.
Yeah. Obviously that's for our coffee podcast. But anyway, so I didn't know where you were going to land. That's why I said a 7. So I'm glad that it was a 9, which makes me feel better about my 7 because why? Like, I feel like a 9 is like, I left it and I was like, damn, I did kind of leave this movie with a little bit of damn, but not like lingering damn. What am I talking about? Let's
Honestly,
pick a movie.
If I had watched it in the evening, like with the lights off and darkness, I probably would have given it a 10.
Like a Paranormal Activity 10?
Yeah.
No, Paranormal Activity was 11. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But we gave something else a 10. The Conjuring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say this
which makes sense. I would actually, The Conjuring made us jump out of our seats, but this one definitely provided shock factor, unlike pretty much any movie we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Kind of like that Reddit review.
Well, it's like you said with Stephen King. It has the perfect trio of like horror, fear. What is it? Horror, gore, and
horror, terror, and gross out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All 3.
It's like that Reddit. It's like that Reddit review that said it kind of, what it had.
Yep.
Hits you.
Reddit said it.
Like a ton of ceramic hands. Anyway, we've been handsy enough for this episode. Should we talk about what we're going to watch next episode?
Let's do it.
Hey, if you're enjoying Scary Movie Fright Night, hit pause real quick, rate, review, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And now, back to the episode. Okay, well, it's going to be hard to top this episode. So we're moving into a different theme, a new theme that we've never done before. And I really hope that it doesn't suck too bad. Because this week we're going to vampires.
Oh, this is a new one. Okay, great.
It is new. Yeah. You seem unenthusiastic about vampires.
I'm neutral. I don't hate vampires. I'm not like, oh, vampires. Okay. I can't wait. I just, let's find out.
Okay, sure. So I will say there was so many movies to choose from. And, trying to figure out scary, classic, it was hard. Like last night was looking through so many different movies, and you talk about movies like that obviously aren't on this list, like Interview with a Vampire, and it's very classic. It's Anne Rice novel, well known, but it's also Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Kirsten Dunst and very well known cast. But then you have other movies like The Lost Boys, which is an 80s movie, which is a classic that you should watch, but did it really fit? I actually had a really hard time picking these movies. But what I found is 3 movies, none of which I've seen, that are all very different from each other. I'm not going to tell you exactly how they're different, but they're all very different. And so they're all unique in their own way. So you want to hear about the first one?
Yeah.
Okay. So in true new style, we have the fun and joyous version. So this is what the first movie is about. In a charming town filled with laughter and sunshine, a mysterious visitor arrives to shake things up. Get ready for a fantastic adventure as this unconventional character takes center stage. With a flair for the dramatic and a taste for the unexpected, our nocturnal friend is about to turn the town upside down in the most delightful and enchanting way. It's a comedy of supernatural proportions that will leave you smiling from ear to ear. Get ready to sink your teeth into a tale like no other. A joyous romp that will have you howling with laughter. Sun emoji, smiling emoji. Is that a sun? I don't know. Yeah.
That sounds so joyful. I love watching movies really that make me, what do you say, smile from ear to ear?
Yep.
Who wouldn't want to watch it?
Also, nothing like a joyous romp.
I love a good old vampire romp.
There's nothing like a romp to just get your blood flowing.
A little romp for a chomp.
Romp for a chomp. That was good. Thanks. A little chomp romp.
Yeah,
it's a chomp romp.
Yep. Okay, what's the second one?
Okay, second one. Join an immortal couple on a timeless journey through the coolest corners of the world. These 2 eternal lovebirds have a taste for the finer things in life, from vintage vinyl to centuries-old romance. Get ready for a hip, soulful ride as they navigate the ups and downs of everlasting love, with style and a killer soundtrack. In a world where love never dies and nights are forever young, this pair proves that immortality has never been so chic. Buckle up for a fantastic... Okay, fantastic twice? Come on, ChatGPT. An eternal date night filled with music, love, and a torch of immortal mischief. Moon crescent emoji, 2 people romance, weird love emoji, and music emoji.
Anyway. Cute. I like the use of emojis in these synopses.
Yeah, well, the third one doesn't have one. I don't know.
What's inappropriate about everlasting love?
No, well, I said...
It's okay. It's like that song. Everlasting love.
No.
You know,
it wasn't the everlasting love. It said something about the. It said something about the ride. As they navigate the ups and downs of everlasting love. I was like, well,
and getting ready for a hip, soulful ride.
I don't get it.
I don't know. Okay. Let's hear the third one.
Okay, third movie. In a quaint and snowy town, a young, endearing boy discovers an extraordinary friendship that's more thrilling than a snowball fight and warmer than a cup of cocoa.
These are so cheesy.
Watch as their heartwarming connection unfolds and gains a backdrop of winter, wonder, and delightful surprises. Get ready for a tale of enchantment where love and laughter bloom like snowflakes, proving that sometimes the right friend can make your world sparkle with joy.
Oh my gosh. A world sparkling with joy? I'm really, this one is, I'm kind of tempted to go for number 3 because of just how cheesy it is. When it said like, better than a snowball fight and warmer than a cup of cocoa.
It is true. I also think that you lean towards the last one you heard. I feel like I need to strategically place the one I want in the back. I don't know if that's true. Maybe
I think the last one was like number 1 or number 2. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
This third synopsis makes me think of the movie Elf. So it's like the vampire version of Elf.
But it's a young boy. A young, endearing boy.
I mean,
so
Elf
it's not
is
like, a 30-year-old man.
But he's a youthful spirit. He kind of acts like a young boy. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
It just, you said something about an extraordinary friendship and tales of enchantment and love and laughter.
Yep. So the question is do you want to be smiling from ear to ear?
Yeah.
A charming town filled with laughter and sunshine and a new visitor arrives? Or do you want a couple on their timeless journey to the corners of the world?
Oh, the couple.
Yeah, with, everything sucks because vampires.
Oh, I love the romance. The idea of the romance.
The romance. Well. And then the last one's the young, endearing boy. I mean, these are very diverse options.
I like, okay, so the first one's comedic, the second one's romantic, and the third one is like charming.
Yeah. For the record, the first one is not comedic, but it says it is.
Well, our ChatGPT fun version of the movie synopsis is comedic.
The first 2 are apparently both fantastic because of ChatGPT's unoriginal.
my experience with vampires is What We Do in the Shadows. Not the movie, but the show.
So I've only seen the movie, which is great. I think the show's also great.
The show is
Taika Waititi.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. None of these is probably gonna
nothing like that. But no. I have my answer for which movie I'm gonna pick based on What We Do in the Shadows. Two of my favorite characters are Nadia and Laszlo, who are in love with each other. They're a couple. But they're in like an open relationship because they have like orgies, vampire orgies and things, which are, that's just kind of what happens in the vampire world.
Yeah. I mean, vampires in general, it's all very romantic. Like a lot of vampire stories have to do with romance, and Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's all about the romance and the long love of this woman, and like it's all very romantic. In many stories.
I love
that.
That's
not uncommon.
Well, maybe there's like something or another that I could learn from one of these movies about romance and relationships. And so I think I'm going to choose the second movie, which is about the two lovebirds. And what is it?
So the second movie is called Only Lovers Left Alive. And it came out in 2013, directed by Jim Jarmusch. Written also by him and Marion Bessay. Starring Tilda Swinton, Mia Wasikowska, and Tom Hiddleston.
Oh, we've got Loki in the house.
We got Loki. Who knew? Vampire Loki, well, we assume. IMDb gave it 7.2 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 86. Audience score, 75. So all these movies actually had really good Rotten Tomato scores. Actually, this one had the worst of the three. The first one, I'm not going to tell you the movie, but it got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Whoa!
The third one got a 98% on
Whoa! And I didn't pick either of those.
It's fine. We'll circle back. I'm not going to tell you because for reasons unknown to you, we will have to circle back to the first one because maybe
every time you say circle back, all I can think about is corporate lingo. Like we're at a business meeting. We'll circle back to it though. It's fine. Let's just run it up the flagpole and I'll CC you. Yeah. I'll ping you later.
You're welcome. That's fine.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right.
I'm just like giving you work nightmares.
Yeah. Oh, that's what they should make a movie about.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode where we broke down Talk to the Hand because the demons ain't listening. Another A24 film. Join us next time while we take a bite out of the vampire movie. Only Lovers Left Alive. Did I get that right? Is that what it's called? I forgot already. Only Lovers Left Alive. It's very alliterative. And go watch it. Tune in. Scary Movie Fright Night. See you next time.
See you next time, everybody.
Hey there. So I know we just ended the episode, but as it turns out, this movie that we selected, Only Lovers Left Alive, is not a horror movie. Sam and I both happened to be watching it at the same time separately. And about 45 minutes in, texted each other and we're like, this isn't going to work. So what we're going to do is instead, we're just going to go watch Nosferatu from 1922, horror classic, first vampire movie ever made when Sam was about 5 years old. Go watch it. See you next episode.
Everlasting love. Da, 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 da. I don't know the words. Everlasting love. Do you know that song? Okay.
Come and take a bite. Suck my blood all night. Ooh. You're a vampire. Everlasting blood.
Oh, that was so good.